Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable heaviness in your heart? A weight that seems to come out of nowhere, dragging your spirit down and clouding your thoughts? If so, you are not alone. Do not be afraid. Knowledge is power, and that is exactly what we are here to give you today. We are about to reveal 7 unmistakable signs that someone envies you and harbors hatred in their heart. These are not just any signs. They are based on the profound wisdom and spiritual insights of the beloved Saint Padre Pio. My dear friends, what you are feeling may not just be daily stress or simple fatigue. It could be something far more sinister, an unseen spiritual attack fueled by envy and hatred directed at you. Yes, you heard that right. Even if you believe there is nothing in your life worth envying, the truth is that each of us carries a divine light that, unfortunately, can attract darkness. But before we reveal these signs, I invite you to make a spiritual commitment. Write in the comments, "Padre Pio, deliver me from all evil." This will seal your commitment to our beloved Padre Pio and open your heart to the profound wisdom we're about to share. Now, before you dismiss this idea, let me ask you, have you noticed sudden changes in your life? Relationships that were once strong now feeling strained for no apparent reason? Opportunities slipping through your fingers despite your best efforts? Or perhaps a persistent feeling of being watched or threatened, even in the safety of your own home? If you've ever felt this unexplained heaviness, I want you to share your experience in the comments below. Write, "I've felt this," if you can relate to this feeling. Your comment might help someone else realize they're not alone in this struggle. These are not coincidences, my friends. These are signs that someone may be harboring envy or resentment toward you on a spiritual level. Many of us have experienced this feeling, but few truly understand its nature. Today, we are going to uncover a truth that may shock you, but more importantly, it will empower you. For those who may not know, Padre Pio was a man of extraordinary spiritual gifts. He could read souls, bilocate, and had an incredibly deep understanding of the spiritual battles we face every day. Perhaps better than anyone in recent history, he knew how the forces of darkness work to undermine our peace, our faith, and our connection with God. Padre Pio once said, "The devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain. Beyond the length of the chain, he cannot seize anyone. And you, therefore, keep your distance. If you get too close, you let yourself be caught." These words remind us that while spiritual attacks are real, we have the power to protect ourselves if we know what to look for and how to respond. Today, we are going to equip you with this knowledge. We will explore each of these 7 signs in detail, helping you understand not only what they are, but why they happen and how they manifest in your daily life. But more than that, we will give you the tools to fight back, protect yourself, and strengthen your spiritual defenses. This is not about living in fear. On the contrary, it is about living with awareness and confidence. It's about recognizing the invisible battles taking place around us and knowing that through faith and understanding, we have the strength to emerge victorious. So Guy, if you've ever felt that unexplained heaviness, if you've wondered why things seem to go wrong for no reason, or if you simply want to strengthen your spiritual armor, this message is for you. Stay with us as we uncover these 7 critical signs and learn how to shield ourselves from the devastating effects of envy and hatred. Remember, my friends, you are not alone in this battle. With the wisdom of Padre Pio as our guide and the strength of faith as our shield, we will learn to recognize these attacks for what they are and stand firm against them. Are you ready to take this journey of spiritual enlightenment and empowerment? Let's begin. Before we dive into the 7 revealing signs, it's crucial to understand the true nature of envy. Many of us think of envy as a simple human emotion, something fleeting and harmless. But the truth, my dear friends, is much deeper and more concerning. Envy, in its essence, is a powerful spiritual force. It's not just a desire for what others have, but a corrosive resentment of others' blessings It's like a shadow that feeds on the light of others, trying to diminish it. And here's something few realize. The more you shine, the more blessed you are, the more this shadow can be drawn to you. You might be thinking, but I don't have anything special. Why would anyone envy me? Ah, my friend, that's where many are mistaken. Each of us carries a divine spark, a unique potential that God has given us. It might be your welcoming smile, your unwavering faith, the peace you radiate, or even the way you face difficulties with grace. These qualities, as simple as they may seem to you, can awaken envy in hearts not aligned with divine love. Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual wisdom, understood this very well. He used to say, "The envy of men shows the value of the things envied." Reflect on this for a moment. The things that awaken envy in others are precisely those that have true spiritual value. Your kindness, your faith, your capacity to love. These are the real riches that can attract envious glances. But why do some people become more frequent targets of this negative energy? Padre Pio teaches us that often it's those who are growing spiritually, those who are drawing closer to God, who face the fiercest attacks. It's as if the enemy, seeing a soul's spiritual progress, intensifies its efforts to bring it down. Imagine a lit candle in a dark room. The brighter the flame, the more it stands out in the darkness. Similarly, the more our inner light shines, the more visible we become on the spiritual plane, both for good and for evil. Padre Pio had a unique view of these invisible spiritual battles. He saw them not as rare or extraordinary events, but as a constant part of our spiritual journey. For him, each day was a battle, each moment an opportunity to choose between light and darkness. He said, "Don't be frightened by your temptations, don't fear them. Pass through them trembling, because the true way to overcome them is by trembling and trusting in God." These words remind us that feeling the impact of these negative forces is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to strengthen our faith and trust in God. It's important to understand that spiritual envy and hatred are not just amplified human emotions. They are true spiritual forces, often manipulated by what Padre Pio called the enemy. This enemy, according to him, is always seeking ways to lead us away from God's path, to weaken our faith and disturb our inner peace. But here's the good news. Just as these negative forces are real, so too is divine protection, and it's infinitely more powerful. Padre Pio teaches us that with faith, prayer, and spiritual vigilance, we can not only defend ourselves against these attacks, but grow through them. Understanding this spiritual context of envy is the first step in protecting ourselves. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, we begin to see what was hidden before. With this knowledge, we can start to identify the signs that we're under spiritual attack and, more importantly, learn how to strengthen ourselves against them. In the coming chapters, we'll explore in detail the 7 signs that Padre Pio taught us to recognize. These signs are like beacons, illuminating the path to our protection and spiritual growth. Be attentive, my dear ones, for this knowledge can profoundly change the way you view and experience your spiritual journey. Always remember, you are not alone in this battle. With Padre Pio's wisdom as our guide and the strength of our faith as a shield, we are prepared to face any spiritual challenge that comes our way. Let's discover these signs together and learn to protect ourselves with the power of faith and divine love. As we delve into the first 3 signs of spiritual envy and hatred, remember that awareness is our first line of defense. Padre Pio often emphasized the importance of being vigilant in our spiritual lives. Let's explore these signs with open hearts and minds, ready to recognize them in our own experiences. Have you ever felt a bone-deep weariness that no amount of sleep seems to cure? This isn't your ordinary tiredness from a busy day. We're talking about a profound exhaustion that seeps into your very soul, making even the simplest spiritual practices feel like climbing a mountain. Padre Pio described this phenomenon as a spiritual dryness. He said, the soul, in its spiritual journey, sometimes feels as if it were in a desert, without water, without consolation. This desert-like experience is often a sign that negative spiritual forces are at work, attempting to drain your energy and enthusiasm for spiritual matters. You might find yourself struggling to pray, feeling disconnected during worship, or experiencing a general apathy towards your faith. These feelings can be particularly distressing if they come on suddenly, with no apparent cause. Maria, a devoted parishioner, shared her experience. "I've always loved attending Mass, but suddenly I felt an overwhelming tiredness every Sunday morning. It wasn't physical. I slept well and was fine for other activities. But the thought of going to church made me feel inexplicably drained. It was as if something was trying to keep me away from my spiritual practice." If you're experiencing this kind of spiritual fatigue, it's crucial not to blame yourself. Instead, recognize it as a potential sign of spiritual attack and take steps to reinvigorate your spiritual life. Padre Pio advised, "In times of spiritual dryness, persevere in prayer. It is precisely then that your faithfulness bears the most fruit." The second sign is a palpable change in the atmosphere around you, particularly in places that once brought you peace. Your home, your workplace, or even your favorite spot in the church might suddenly feel oppressive or uncomfortable. Padre Pio was acutely sensitive to spiritual atmospheres. He could often sense the presence of negative forces in a room or around a person. While most of us may not have his level of spiritual sensitivity, we can still perceive these changes, even if we can't immediately explain them. This heaviness might manifest as a feeling of being watched, an inexplicable sense of unease, or a persistent dark cloud hanging over certain areas of your life. You might notice that you feel relief when leaving a particular place, only to have the heaviness return when you come back. John, a small business owner, described his experience. "My office used to be my favorite place, but one day it started feeling wrong. The air felt thick and I constantly felt on edge. I checked for mold, changed the lighting, even rearranged the furniture, but nothing helped. It was as if a dark presence had moved in." This change in environment is often a sign that negative spiritual energies, fueled by envy or hatred, are attempting to establish a foothold in your life. Padre Pio taught that these forces can indeed affect our physical surroundings, creating an atmosphere of oppression or fear. In such cases, Padre Pio recommended the power of blessing. He said, "The blessing of God is like the sun. It chases away the darkness." Consider having your living or working space blessed, or regularly pray over these areas yourself. The third sign is closely related to the first, but it deserves special attention due to its critical nature. Prayer is our lifeline to God, our spiritual nourishment. When this connection becomes strained or blocked, it's a serious indicator of spiritual interference. You might find yourself unable to focus during prayer, constantly distracted by random thoughts or worries. Words that once flowed easily might now feel forced or hollow. Perhaps you experience a sudden reluctance to pray or feel an inexplicable anger or frustration when you try to connect with God. Padre Pio, known for his profound prayer life, understood these struggles intimately. He said, "Prayer is the best weapon we possess. It is the key that opens the heart of God." But he also recognized that prayer could become a battlefield where the enemy tries its hardest to sever our connection with the divine. Sarah, a longtime prayer group leader, shared her struggle. "I've led our church's prayer group for years, but suddenly, every time I tried to pray, my mind would go blank. It felt like hitting a wall. The words wouldn't come, and I felt a strange resistance, almost like something was trying to stop me from praying. It was terrifying." If you're experiencing this difficulty in prayer, don't despair. Padre Pio encourages us, saying, "Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer." He advised persistence in the face of these challenges, reminding us that sometimes the simple act of showing up to pray, even when we feel we can't, is a powerful act of faith. In times of prayer difficulty, Padre Pio suggested starting with simple, heartfelt prayers. Even a sincere, "Help me, Lord," can break through spiritual barriers. He also recommended the use of structured prayers, like the Rosary, which can provide a framework when our own words fail us. These first three signs, spiritual exhaustion, heaviness in your environment, and difficulty in prayer, are often the initial indicators that someone's envy or hatred is affecting you on a spiritual level. They target the very core of our spiritual life, attempting to wear us down and separate us from our source of strength. But remember, recognizing these signs is not about living in fear. It's about being aware so we can take action. Padre Pio reminds us, the devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain. Beyond the length of the chain, he cannot seize anyone. And you, therefore, keep at a distance. If you approach too near, you let yourself be caught. In the face of these signs, we must stand firm in our faith. Padre Pio's advice was always to turn towards God, not away, in times of spiritual struggle. Increase your prayer life, even if it feels difficult. Bless your surroundings regularly, and above all, remember that these attacks often come because you are growing spiritually, moving closer to God. In our next section, we'll explore two more signs that indicate spiritual envy and hatred. Stay vigilant, my friends, and remember, awareness is the first step towards victory in our spiritual battles. As we continue our exploration of the signs that Padre Pio taught us to recognize, let's delve into two more indicators that someone's envy or hatred might be affecting you on a spiritual level. These signs often manifest in our daily lives and relationships, serving as subtle yet powerful indicators of spiritual warfare. One of the most distressing signs of spiritual attack through envy or hatred is an inexplicable shift in your personal relationships. You might notice that previously strong bonds suddenly become strained, or that misunderstandings arise more frequently than usual. Padre Pio was keenly aware of how spiritual forces could influence human relationships. He often said, "The devil doesn't sleep. He's always looking for opportunities to sow discord." This discord can manifest in various ways. You might find longtime friends becoming distant without apparent reason. Family members who were once supportive may become critical or judgmental. Colleagues at work might start to exclude you or misinterpret your actions. Even your closest relationships, like with a spouse or children, might inexplicably become tense or fraught with conflict. Linda, a devoted mother and wife, shared her experience. It was as if a switch had been flipped. My husband and I, who rarely argued, started fighting over the smallest things. My children became unusually defiant. Even my best friend of 20 years started avoiding me. I couldn't understand what was happening to my once peaceful family life. This sudden strain on relationships is often a tactic used by negative spiritual forces to isolate you, making you feel alone and unsupported. Padre Pio taught that the enemy often targets our relationships because they are a source of strength and love in our lives. In facing these relationship challenges, Padre Pio advised patience and forgiveness. He said, "Love is the first ingredient in the relief of suffering." When you notice these inexplicable changes in your relationships, respond with love and understanding. Pray for those who seem to turn against you and maintain your own integrity in your interactions. The fifth sign involves a series of unexpected obstacles or setbacks in various areas of your life. You might find that despite your best efforts, you face constant roadblocks in your career, finances, or personal projects. Padre Pio understood that spiritual attacks often manifest in our physical reality. He taught that when someone harbors envy or hatred towards us, it can create a kind of spiritual interference that affects our daily lives. These blocks might look like constant financial struggles, despite careful budgeting, repeated setbacks in your career, even when you're well qualified, persistent health issues that doctors struggle to diagnose or treat effectively, projects or plans that continually fall through at the last minute. James D., a talented architect, described his experience. "I've always been successful in my field, but suddenly every project I touched seemed to go wrong. Clients would back out at the last minute, plans would get lost, or unexpected problems would arise. It felt like an invisible force was working against me. Padre Pio often reminded his spiritual children that these obstacles, while challenging, could also be opportunities for spiritual growth. He said, "The most beautiful act of faith is the one made in darkness, in sacrifice, and with extreme effort." When facing these unexpected blocks, Padre Pio advised maintaining a strong prayer life and trusting in God's plan. He believed that sometimes what appears to be an obstacle might actually be divine protection or redirection. It's crucial to note that not every difficulty in life is a sign of spiritual attack. However, when these blocks appear suddenly, persist despite your best efforts, and seem to affect multiple areas of your life simultaneously, it may be worth considering whether there's a spiritual component at play. In dealing with these obstacles, Padre Pio encouraged perseverance and faith. He often said, "Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer." This advice reminds us to maintain our spiritual practices, especially when, we face unexpected challenges. As we reflect on these two signs, changes in personal relationships and unexpected blocks in life, we can see how deeply spiritual attacks can affect our daily experiences. Padre Pio's teachings remind us that recognizing these signs is not about living in fear, but about being aware and prepared. By understanding these signs, we equip ourselves to respond with faith, love, and resilience. Remember, the goal of those who envy or hate us is often to make us doubt ourselves and our faith. By staying strong in our spiritual convictions and responding with love, we not only protect ourselves, but also grow stronger in our faith. In our next section, we'll explore the final two signs that Padre Pio taught us to recognize. Stay strong, my friends, and remember that awareness is our first defense against spiritual attacks. As we approach the final two signs that Padre Pio taught us to recognize, it's important to remember that these manifestations of spiritual envy and hatred can be subtle yet profound. They often touch the most personal aspects of our lives, challenging us to remain steadfast in our faith. One of the most concerning signs of spiritual attack through envy or hatred is an unexplained deterioration in your health. Padre Pio, who himself suffered from various health issues throughout his life, was acutely aware of the connection between spiritual warfare and physical well-being. These health issues might manifest as sudden, inexplicable illnesses that doctors struggle to diagnose, chronic fatigue, or pain that doesn't respond to normal treatment. Sleep disturbances, including insomnia or vivid nightmares, unexplained anxiety or panic attacks. Sarah, a usually healthy teacher, shared her experience. "I've always been in good health, but suddenly I was hit with a series of mysterious ailments. Constant headaches, unexplained body pains, and a fatigue that no amount of rest could cure. The doctors were baffled, and all tests came back normal. It was as if my body was under attack from an invisible force." Padre Pio often spoke about how spiritual battles can manifest physically. He said, "The body is like a donkey that must be beaten to keep it from braying." While this metaphor might seem harsh, it illustrates his understanding that our physical bodies can be affected by spiritual forces. However, it's crucial to note that not all health issues are signs of spiritual attack. Padre Pio always advised seeking proper medical care. He believed in the power of both prayer and medicine, often saying, "Pray as if everything depended on God, and work as if everything depended on you." When facing unexplained health issues, Padre Pio recommended combining medical treatment with spiritual practices. He encouraged the use of sacramentals, like holy water or blessed oil, alongside medical care. He also emphasized the healing power of the sacraments, particularly confession and the Eucharist. The final sign we'll discuss is perhaps the most unsettling, the occurrence of negative supernatural phenomena. Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual gifts, was well versed in recognizing these manifestations. These phenomena might include vivid, disturbing nightmares or night terrors, sleep paralysis accompanied by a sense of malevolent presence, unexplained noises, movements, or shadows in your living space, a persistent feeling of being watched or followed. Mark, a devout family man, recounted his experience. It started with nightmares so vivid, I'd wake up in a cold sweat. Then I began hearing unexplained noises in the house, footsteps when no one was there, doors slamming on their own. The worst was the constant feeling of being watched. It was terrifying, and it made me question my sanity. Padre Pio took these experiences seriously, but always cautioned against giving in to fear. He said, "The devil is like a mad dog tied by a chain. Beyond the length of the chain, he cannot catch hold of anyone, and you, therefore, keep your distance. If you get too close, you will be caught." When facing such phenomena, Padre Pio advised several strategies. Increase your prayer life, especially devotional prayers like the Rosary. Use sacramentals, such as holy water or blessed objects. In your living space, regularly participate in the sacraments, particularly confession and the Eucharist. Invoke the protection of guardian angels and patron saints. It's important to approach these experiences with a balance of faith and discernment. Not every strange occurrence is supernatural, and Padre Pio always encouraged seeking rational explanations first. However, when these phenomena persist and align with other signs we've discussed, it may indicate a need for spiritual intervention. Padre Pio reminded us that even in the face of such unsettling experiences, we should not lose hope or give in to fear. He said, "Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer." As we reflect on these final two signs, attacks on health and negative supernatural phenomena, we see how deeply spiritual warfare can affect our lives. However, Padre Pio's teachings remind us that recognizing these signs is not about succumbing to fear, but about equipping ourselves with the tools of faith to stand firm against spiritual attacks. Remember, the goal of those who envy or hate us is often to make us doubt our faith and God's love for us. By staying strong in our spiritual convictions and responding with prayer and trust in God, we not only protect ourselves, but also grow stronger in our faith. In our final section, we'll explore Padre Pio's guidance on how to protect ourselves and strengthen our spiritual defenses against these attacks. Stay hopeful, my friends, for as Padre Pio often said, "Where there is darkness, let us bring light." Now that we've explored the 7 signs of spiritual envy and hatred, it's crucial to understand how to protect ourselves and strengthen our spiritual defenses. And Padre Pio, with his wealth of spiritual wisdom, provided invaluable guidance on this matter. Let's delve into his teachings on spiritual protection and fortification. Padre Pio often referred to the Rosary as his weapon. He said, "The Rosary is the weapon for these times." This simple yet profound prayer was a cornerstone of his spiritual practice, and he strongly advocated its use for protection against spiritual attacks. The Rosary, according to Padre Pio, serves multiple purposes. It's a shield against temptation and negative influences. It's a means of deepening our relationship with Mary and, through her, with Jesus. It provides a structured way to meditate on the life of Christ. Maria, a devoted follower of Padre Pio's teachings, shared her experience. "When I started praying the Rosary daily, as Padre Pio suggested, I felt a noticeable shift in my spiritual life. The heaviness I had been feeling started to lift, and I found strength to face the challenges in my life." Padre Pio recommended praying the Rosary multiple times a day, if possible. He believed that this repetitive prayer created a spiritual fortress around the soul, making it harder for negative forces to penetrate. Another powerful tool for spiritual protection that Padre Pio emphasized was regular participation in the Eucharist. He viewed the Eucharist not just as a sacrament, but as a direct encounter with Christ that fortified the soul against spiritual attacks. Padre Pio said, 1,000 years of enjoying human glory is not worth even an hour spent in sweetly communing with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. He believed that receiving the Eucharist frequently, daily if possible, provided unparalleled spiritual nourishment and protection. John, a businessman who struggled with unexplained setbacks, recounted, "Following Padre Pio's advice, I started attending daily Mass and receiving the Eucharist. It wasn't easy with my schedule, but I made it a priority. Gradually, I noticed a change. The obstacles in my life didn't disappear, but I found a new strength to face them. It was as if I had a shield around me." Padre Pio encouraged not just receiving the Eucharist, but spending time in adoration. He believed that sitting in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament was a powerful way to recharge spiritually and ward off negative influences. Fasting was another spiritual discipline that Padre Pio strongly advocated for protection against spiritual attacks. He saw fasting not just as a physical act, but as a powerful spiritual tool that strengthened the soul's defenses. Padre Pio said, "The devil is afraid of fasting because it foils his plans." He believed that fasting helped to purify the body and soul, making it easier to discern spiritual influences and resist temptation. However, Padre Pio was also practical in his approach to fasting. He advised that fasting should be done under spiritual guidance and in accordance with one's health and responsibilities. It wasn't about extreme deprivation, but about making sacrifices that helped focus the mind and spirit on God. Sarah, a mother of 3, shared, "I was skeptical about fasting at first, but I decided to try giving up my morning coffee as a small sacrifice. It was hard, but every time I felt the urge for coffee, I said a quick prayer instead. Over time, I noticed I became more attuned to spiritual things, and the negative feelings that had been plaguing me started to dissipate." One of Padre Pio's most emphatic teachings was about the importance of maintaining a pure heart. He believed that a heart free from grudges, resentment, and unforgiveness was a powerful defense against spiritual attacks. Padre Pio often said, "The greatest form of charity is prayer." He encouraged praying for those who wronged us, believing that this act of love not only protected us from negative influences, but also helped to heal broken relationships. He advised regular examination of conscience and frequent confession to keep the heart pure. Padre Pio saw confession not just as a sacrament of forgiveness, but as a powerful means of spiritual cleansing and protection. Marcus, who had been experiencing unexplained conflicts in his relationships, noted, "When I started following Padre Pio's advice about maintaining a pure heart, it was challenging. Forgiving those who hurt me wasn't easy. But as I practiced it, praying for them and going to regular confession, I noticed the conflicts in my life started to resolve. It was as if the negativity lost its power over me." Finally, Padre Pio emphasized the importance of trusting in God's plan, even in the face of apparent attacks or setbacks. He often repeated, "Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer." This trust, according to Padre Pio, was not passive but active. It involved surrendering our fears and concerns to God while continuing to do our best in all situations. He believed that this trust created a powerful shield against spiritual attacks, as it aligned our will with God's will. Lisa, who had been experiencing a series of setbacks in her career, shared, "Adopting Padre Pio's attitude of trust was a game changer for me. Instead of worrying about every obstacle, I started to see them as opportunities for growth. The peace I found in trusting God's plan was the best protection against the negativity I had been feeling." In conclusion, Padre Pio's teachings on spiritual protection emphasize a holistic approach. It's not about a single action, but about cultivating a lifestyle of faith, prayer, and trust in God. By incorporating these practices, praying the Rosary, participating in the Eucharist, fasting, maintaining a pure heart, and trusting in divine providence, we create a strong spiritual defense against envy, hatred, and any negative forces that may come against us. Remember, as Padre Pio often said, for those who believe, no explanation is necessary. For those who do not believe, no explanation is possible. Trust in these spiritual tools, apply them consistently, and watch as your spiritual strength grows, providing you with the protection and peace that Padre Pio promised to all who follow this path. As we come to the end of our exploration of Padre Pio's teachings on spiritual envy and hatred, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken together. We've uncovered 7 critical signs that someone might be harboring envy or hatred towards us on a spiritual level. Unexplained spiritual exhaustion, a heaviness in your environment, difficulty in prayer, sudden changes in personal relationships, unexpected blocks in your life, attacks on your health, negative supernatural phenomena. These signs, as Padre Pio taught us, are not meant to instill fear, but to awaken our spiritual awareness. They are calls to action, invitations to deepen our faith and strengthen our spiritual defenses. Remember, recognizing these signs is only the first step. Padre Pio's wisdom goes beyond mere identification. It provides us with a roadmap for protection and spiritual growth. Let's recap the key strategies he advocated: the power of the rosary as a spiritual weapon, regular participation in the Eucharist, the practice of fasting as a means of spiritual cleansing, maintaining a pure heart through forgiveness and regular confession, trusting in divine providence, even in the face of adversity. These practices, when integrated into our daily lives, form a powerful shield against spiritual attacks. They not only protect us, but also help us grow stronger in our faith. Now, I want to speak directly to you, dear friend. Perhaps as you've read through these signs and teachings, you've recognized some of them in your own life. Maybe you felt that inexplicable heaviness, experienced sudden conflicts in your relationships, or faced unexpected obstacles that seem to have no logical explanation. First and foremost, I want you to know that you're not alone. Many of us face these spiritual battles, often without realizing their true nature. But now that you're aware, you have the power to take action. Start small. Choose one of Padre Pio's recommended practices and incorporate it into your daily routine. Perhaps begin with the rosary, setting aside a few minutes each day to pray. Or make an effort to attend Mass more regularly, drawing strength from the Eucharist. Remember Padre Pio's words: pray, hope, and don't worry. This simple phrase encapsulates a profound truth: that our strength lies not in our own efforts alone, but in our trust in God's love and protection. As you begin to implement these practices, pay attention to the changes in your life. You may not see dramatic results overnight, but over time, you'll likely notice a shift. The heaviness may start to lift, relationships may begin to heal, and you may find a new strength to face life's challenges. But don't stop there. Share this knowledge with others. Look around you, in your family, your community, your workplace. Are there others who might be experiencing these signs of spiritual attack? Reach out to them with compassion and share what you've learned. Padre Pio's teachings remind us that we're all connected in this spiritual battle. By helping others recognize and combat spiritual envy and hatred, we not only strengthen our own defenses, but contribute to the spiritual health of our entire community. As we conclude, I want to leave you with one final thought from Padre Pio. He said, "The day you no longer burn with love, many will die of the cold." This powerful statement reminds us that our spiritual health isn't just about our own well-being. It affects everyone around us. So I challenge you today, burn with love. Let the light of your faith shine brightly, undimmed by the shadows of envy or hatred. Use the tools Padre Pio has given us to protect that flame and help it grow stronger. And remember, even in the darkest moments, when you feel most under attack, you are never alone. God's love and protection are always with you, and the wisdom of saints like Padre Pio guides us on our path. Thank you for joining me on this journey of spiritual discovery. May you go forth with new awareness, strength, and hope, ready to face whatever challenges come your way. And may the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Before we part, I invite you to take a moment now. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and offer a prayer of gratitude for the protection and guidance we've received. Then, with renewed determination, step out into the world, armed with the wisdom of Padre Pio and the strength of your faith. Remember, in the words of Padre Pio, the hope of the world is in the mercy of God. Go forth and be a beacon of that hope in a world that desperately needs it.